Chapter 1 Liangzhou's strongest second generation. The Great Yuan Empire, Northern Territory Langzhou City. It was the dead of winter with goose feather snow swirling in the air, inside the grand hall of Qiongjing Tower establishment. So Qi, clad in fine furs and hat, suddenly widened his eyes, pointing ahead. Beat them! 7 or 8 of his thugs pounced like hungry tigers. Ouch! With several screams, several richly dressed young masters were kicked out of Qiongjing Tower. A smile spread across Su Qi's handsome face. He strode to the steps of Qiongjing Tower and addressed the young masters below. I spit, you dare compete with this young master for the best dish? A young man picked up his hat from the ground, furious. So Qi, you're nothing but a lucky bastard born into privilege. What's the matter? I'm simply a reincarnation prodigy. Don't you believe me? Then try reincarnating yourself and show me. I got here through my own abilities, so what right do you have to criticize me? Who wants to hear this anyway? So Qi didn't feel ashamed. Instead, he planted his hands on his hips, exuding an inexplicable air of self-righteousness. The people around were stunned by Su Qi's shameless words. Even the arrogance of the wicked servant beside Su Qi seemed to have diminished. After all, in this era of strict etiquette and with the benchmark of self-improvement for gentlemen, openly claiming to have been reincarnated through one's own abilities was simply a disgrace, a disgrace! The young masters rolling on the ground were also speechless for a moment, their faces turning red with suppressed anger, not knowing how to respond, while the others racked their brains for insults. A young man, holding a folding fan despite the cold weather, snapped it open and gently shook it twice. Sniff. The young man's attempt at posturing failed. A string of snot dripped from his nose, forcing him to quickly wipe it away. Ha ha! Hearing the laughter around him, the young man's face. He closed his folding fan and pointed at Suki. Suki, don't get cocky. Even if you're the governor's son, according to the Su clan rules, those without cultivation at 15 will be stripped of their clan member status and demoted to working the Su family ancestral lands. Then, let's see how you, this good-for-nothing, will dare to act arrogant in front of us. Who had been full of spirit, turned gloomy upon hearing the young man's words and said angrily, beat him up. He'll take responsibility if someone dies. As at these words, 7 or 8 burly thugs surged forward. Several young masters let out a few startled cries, then scattered in a panic, vanishing without a trace. Susu, the first course is ready. Where would you like to dine? A waiter approached with a fawning smile. Lia's words had soared Sukyu's mood. He had no appetite, and with a cold snort declared, "I'm not eating." The waiter's face fell. A large silver ingot landed before him. He instantly recovered his composure, bowing and scraping. Farewell, Master Su. Come again soon. So Qi strode towards his luxuriously appointed wheeled carriage. To the manor! The driver urged the horses towards the Su residence, while 8 burly thugs mounted their own horses and followed closely, providing a protective escort. Seated within the opulent carriage, So Qi wore a troubled expression. It had been nearly 10 years since he had arrived in this world. As the son of the most powerful official in Liangzhou City, he had enjoyed a life of luxury and ease. Furthermore, as a time traveler, So Qi at a young age had casually recited a few lines of poetry, leading the entire Su family to believe him a prodigy, showering him with extraordinary affection. So, apart from the strict family rules forbidding visits to pleasure houses, overall, unrestrained and joyful. But all this changed 3 years ago when So Qi was 12, during the Celestial Pulse test. That year, So Qi learned that this place called the Central World was, just like in many novels he had read. Simply put, based on the difference in cultivation cores, the Central World divided cultivators into 3 professions: Magus warriors, Magi, and warriors. Generally speaking, among those of the same rank, Magus warriors were the strongest, Magi were second, and warriors were the weakest. But no matter which profession one could become, it wasn't determined later in life, but by innate conditions. Everyone in the Central World, when they turned 12, would begin to grow something called a pulse within their bodies. To put it simply, the type of pulse would determine one's cultivation method, and the rank of the pulse would determine one's cultivation talent. Warriors had Magus warrior pulses, and warriors had warrior pulses. And Su Qi, he had none. Yes, this is Su Qi's 12-year-old assessment result. After that assessment, Su Qi's status in the Su family plummeted. From genius to good for nothing. Sometimes it's that simple. Damn it, this standard trash. To treasure trope opening. It actually happened to me, Su Qi muttered in the carriage, able to contain himself. Before, reading those trash to treasure novels was so exhilarating. But now that it's actually happening to me, Su Qi only felt utterly screwed. Although it was a superior carriage, due to the limitations of the era's productivity, the roads were uneven, and the carriage's shock absorption wasn't good. The ride was bumpy and swaying. Finally, with a creaking and groaning sound, the carriage arrived before the Su manor gates. Young master! The guard standing at the gate immediately greeted Su Qi. So Qi nodded casually, knowing his days of carefree extravagance might be numbered. So Qi had been flaunting his power throughout Liangzhou City for the past 3 years. As a result, a saying circulated among the servants of the Su manor: it's better to shit on the master's head than to cross the young master. Yes, they learned the word cross from the young master himself. Big brother, back from showing off your power. So Qi had just entered when someone started teasing and mocking him. You're not my dog! What are you wagging your tail at me for? I'm not gonna give you any bones. So Qi didn't even look, knowing it was his younger half-brother, Su Tong, the son of his mother's maid. Su Tong was immediately furious at Su Qi's words and gritted his teeth, saying, Big brother, I'm just reminding you that the grand test is in 3 days. If the results show you're still a pulseless one, you'll have to return to the ancestral land to farm. Need you to remind me? Or are you afraid that I'll steal your farming work and leave you without food? Su sneered, never stopping his steps, watching Suki walk away. Su Tong muttered through gritted teeth, so proud. Ha! When the results of the grand test come out and you're a stray dog, I'll return to the ancestral land and crush you under my feet. Then let's see if you dare to be arrogant. Su dismissed his servants, letting them go to collect their rewards, throwing himself onto the bed. Damn it, so annoying! If I really am pulseless in 3 days, do I really have to go farming? Su looked utterly exasperated. Generally speaking, there are only 2 aptitude tests in the central world, because a pulse only manifests twice, once at the age of 12 when it initially appears, and again at 15 when it is fully formed. The initial test at 12 is fine, because time and other factors can influence the results, making it just a reference. When the pulse is fully formed and permanent, is the final result. Even so, throughout history, the probability of a 12-year-old having no pulse and then having one at 15 is pitifully small. Other transmigrants are either geniuses or have all sorts of cheats. Why do I have nothing? So Qi rolled his eyes and complained. If it can't be helped, at least give me a system. Hello, excuse me, host. You just mentioned a system, were you calling me? Chapter 1002, the Grand Plunder System. Hello, excuse me, host, you calling me? The sudden voice made Su Q jump from the bed as if had been electrocuted. Who's talking? Su Q looked around cautiously, the empty room revealing no other living beings. Cough. Wasn't the host just calling for a system? I am your system, there really is a system. Su Q looked dubious. Shouldn't systems, when they bind to a host, make a loud? The system then acting all cool, aloof, and overwhelmingly awesome to show off to the host. This system is rather shy and introverted. What the hell? A shy and introverted system? Now I've seen everything. Shy and you've been able to pretend to be dead all these years while I'm getting beaten up? So Qi questioned. Seeing the system's demeanor, So Qi didn't want to wait for it to hem and haw any longer. Otherwise, by the time it finished, it'd probably have spent 15 years farming in the ancestral lands. Just get to the point and tell me what your functions are? So Qi asked the crucial question directly. Well, the host should see for themselves. So Qi seriously doubted the reliability of this system. At that moment, a virtual holographic screen appeared in Su Q's mind. Grand Plunder System inactivated. Host bound. So Qi, host occupation. Host talent, no polls. None. Plundered, a 5% trigger chance. System level. Zudjedza went. This even Su Qi's speech seems infected by this broken system plunder. What the heck is that? Simply put, when the host initiates an attack on an enemy unit and the attack hit, this system has a certain chance of helping the host randomly plunder any possession of the enemy unit. The system's speech suddenly became fluent. Sounds credible. So Qi blinked, voicing his thoughts, questioned by Su Qi. The system reverted to its previous stuttering state for a moment. Actually, it's quite powerful. The system feels off. So Q fell into contemplation. But after a moment, So Qi shot up from the bed and asked with utmost seriousness, system. Of course. But what? So Qi raised an eyebrow. But it still requires a certain probability to trigger. As long as there's a chance. A light of hope suddenly shone in Su Q's eyes. He then asked, how do you activate? Does the host need to activate this system? Nonsense! So Qi thought if this system had a physical form, he would definitely drag it out for a good beating, to teach it what powerful meant. Ding! The Great Plunder System has been successfully activated. Hearing this prompt, So Qi felt only 3 words swirling in his mind. Should I say this or not? Also, now that the system is activated, host, you can communicate with me just by thinking. And don't use that law at the end of every sentence, So Qi said, hurrying out the door. Okay? In the following half day, everyone in the Su residence discovered something shocking. The eldest son of the Su family seemed to have gone mad. It was said that young Master Su Qi had been angered by a young master from the Lu Sima family. Then he was further provoked by young Master Su Tong, after which, in a fit of rage, he returned to his room and went mad. The proof of his madness was that, from the afternoon onwards, young Master Su Qi had been attacking people in the mansion without reason, causing chaos throughout the Su residence. Some of the Su family's branch members suffered immensely. In the spacious courtyard of the Su residence, a young man hurried into the main house. Oh, that young Master Su Qi is causing trouble again. A middle-aged man slightly opened his eyes. He was Su Tianxing, the newly appointed elder of the Su family's council and younger brother of the head of the family. Su Tianying, let him be. He won't be around for much longer. Let him enjoy this final fling. Besides, giving my elder brother some extra headaches isn't a bad thing either. At this point, a cold chuckle escaped Su Tiancheng's lips. Hee. Su Qi had stealthily attacked over a dozen people, yet the system's so-called plunder function remained utterly useless. System, you damn thing! Are you pulling my leg? No, the plunder function is, after all, probability-based. Please be patient, host, and continue trying. The function will activate eventually. Go to hell! So Q couldn't help but curse again. But right now, if he didn't want to return to the ancestral lands to become a farmer, besides this system, who else could he rely on? So Q blinked. Even his father, the head of the family, wouldn't dare defy the ancestral teachings and prevent him from farming, would he? He'll try 3 more times! If this damn system still doesn't trigger, it can uninstall itself and go eat shit. So Qi issued his final ultimatum to the unresponsive system. The system silently muttered to itself, what the hell? You this unlucky black state fellow, can't trigger the plunder because of your bad luck, and it's my fault. You black chieftain, I hate probabilities the most, So Qi grumbled again. Whenever it comes to pro, it's always a pain in the ass for me. It's like those events simply don't exist. Suki then ambushed 2 more people, still without success. Just as Suki was considering giving up, suddenly spotted Sutong, chatting and laughing with several maidservants. Fine, even if I have to go farming in a few days, it'll give you a memorable lesson today, Suki sneered. Sutong, that little rascal, has always been underhanded. Even when I was still a prominent figure in the Su family, he would flatter me to my face while secretly reporting my actions to the elders, getting me punished several times. And when I was 12 and showed no signs of cultivation potential, he and his concubine mother immediately changed their attitude, becoming incredibly arrogant. In recent years they've become increasingly brazen. Suki silently concealed himself, entering observation mode. Sutong, with a lecherous grin, was groping the body of the young maidservant with his filthy hands. Now or never! Seeing Sutong attempt to reach under the maidservant's collar, Suki launched himself forward. His movement was as swift as a dragon, as rapid as an eagle. Sutong chuckled lewdly, the maidservant's eyes brimming with unshed tears. Too terrified to resist! Oh my! The maidservant gasped, covering her mouth as she saw the rapidly approaching figure. Sutong froze, his movements momentarily halting. A powerful shout echoed through the Su family's back garden. Ah! An even more agonizing scream pierced the air, reverberating throughout the entire Su residence. Chapter 003 Demon Martial Meridian. Ding. Host used 1000-year kill on Sutong, triggering the plunder effect and successfully plundering 1 Demon Martial Meridian Magic Martial Pulse. So Q exclaimed in surprise. You. Sutong, eyes brimming with tears, shielded his burning rear with one hand, while tremblingly pointing at Suki with the other. Suki, I swear I'll be your enemy until the day I die. Who have you torn to pieces? Hearing this, Suki, no longer concerned with the system's plunder, stepped forward and slapped Sutong across the face. Damn it, Sutong, do you think you can get away with such treasonous talk? You a mere bastard son, dare to speak such rebellious words to me, the legitimate heir. Do you believe I won't report this to the Elders' Council right now and let those old men teach you what legitimate heir means? So Q's eyes narrowed menacingly. Sutong panicked at this. For years, no one in the Su manor dared challenge Suki's authority. Sutong stamped his foot and muttered, "You'll regret this, then!" Clutching at himself, Sutong limped away. "Thank you, young master!" Several maids looked at Suki with gratitude. Suki was practically a little tyrant in the Su manor, yet he had never truly bullied his servants without reason, especially the maids. Alright, if that dog Sutong ever tries to take advantage of you again, give him a good slap! If anything happens, he'll take the blame! Suki waved his hand generously. Yes, their gratitude evident. Go and get back to work. Suki dismissed them with a wave of his hand, intending to return to his room and examine this magic martial pulse acquired by the system. Walking down the road, it suddenly struck Suki that his years of dissolute living had drastically changed his character. He sighed, lamenting the loss of his former simple purity. Wasn't he supposed to be a gentle and refined young master? Heartless bandit! The system blurted out uncontrollably. Suki retorted, "You're the real bandit system, never mind your name, the plunder system. Your only function is plunder, and you have the nerve to call me out on it." The introverted system was speechless. It felt that if it had eyes, it would have burst into tears. Just as he reached his door, Su stopped abruptly. "Wait, you can read my mind?" Yes, pervert, peeping Tom, lunatic!" Suki flung open the door, instantly launching into a verbal assault on the system. The system was close to tears, silently thinking, "Damn it. Who wants to read your filthy, idiotic thoughts? Wait, why did I just swear? Must be the influence of this host!" Closing the door behind him, Suki ignored the system's further remonstration, sat on the bed. System panel. Grand Plunder Systems activated. Host bound. Suki. Host profession none. Host talent no pulse. Host cultivation none. System. Trigger chanced. System level 1 did 1 Venturia Futi 20 point. Martial pulse yellow grade mid. Ha! System, did you upgrade? Why is there an inventory now? The plunder trigger chance seems to have increased too. Seeing the chain, Suki couldn't help but ask. Yes, the host just successfully plundered and this system has upgraded. Su, thinking of those novels he had read before, complained, "You upgraded without telling me, how unprofessional!" You should at least have a ding 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 reminder. The system was speechless, unsure where Suki's unprofessionalism stemmed from. Could he have had other systems? Gazing at the martial magic vein, Suki hesitated. A yellow. Martial magic veins are naturally excellent, but in this world, there are 16 ranks in total, initially divided into heaven, earth, Xuan, and yellow ranks, each further subdivided into supreme, superior. This yellow rank, mid-grade vein, is second to the lowest. While it avoids the need to cultivate in the ancestral land, using it would make me just an ordinary young man with mediocre aptitude. But if I don't use it, I might not be able to obtain another vein anytime soon. And what is it now? Suki's brow twitched, irritated by the system's interruption. Ahem. Host, don't worry about the low quality of this martial magic vein. If you trigger a few more plunderings, and this system upgrades again, it should have a vein synthesis function. Suki's eyes widened. Vein synthesis? Yes, then, host, the veins you plunder from others can be synthesized and refined together, improving the quality of your existing vein. How did you know? Suki questioned suspiciously, suspecting the system harbored resentment for his constant berating, intending to trick him into using a useless cultivation technique, ensuring he lived an ordinary life. The system found this bizarre host's thoughts quite something, his speech even becoming fluent. Rest assured, host, this system does have a degree of foresight regarding the next tier of unlocked functions. Furthermore, This system can only be bound to one person for life. Our fates are intertwined. Please don't worry, he. So Qi found communicating with something that could constantly perceive his crooked thoughts rather awkward. So Kai asked again, with such a good function available, why didn't you tell me sooner?
You should have told me earlier!
If you had, I would have known. That's the problem. Why didn't you tell me sooner? The system concluded that this host must be ill. And seriously ill at that. So Qi stopped arguing. After easing the awkward atmosphere by playfully bickering in the style of Tang monks scolding Sun Wukong, he didn't hesitate and directly used the cultivation technique he had seized from Su Tong. A tingling sensation arose from his danshan, prompting Su to check his system panel, where he found 2 changes. Host talent Demon Martial Pulse mid, yellow grade. Inventory empty do as 20. So, I have a pulse, that means. So Qi bin this world. Because the ages of 12 to 15 are crucial for pulse development to prevent any accidents, even romantic entanglements are forbidden. Even Su Q, the son of Liangzhou's most powerful official, didn't have a personal maidservant. Now that I have a pulse, shouldn't I ask father for a maidservant? Someone older than me, 18 or 19 would be best. What, of course, a bit older would be even better. Su Qi's thoughts drifted to inappropriate places, and he let out a series of lewd chuckles. The system pretended to know nothing about these rather inappropriate thoughts.
Young master, it's not good, your father summoned you.
A hurried voice and footsteps suddenly approached from outside. Chapter 1004's Begin your performance. So Qi stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his posture ramrod straight. A young servant, stooping low, hurried ahead. As the clan of the governor of Liangzhou, the Su residence was naturally vast, with countless courtyards lining up side by side, connected by long and intricate corridors. After passing through several courtyards, So Qi finally followed the servant to his father's study. Master, the eldest young master has arrived, the servant respectfully said, before waiting out. So Qi strode across the threshold, a radiant smile on his face. Father, mother, seated in the main seats of the study were a stern middle-aged man and a beautiful and dignified woman. So Chu's father, So Qianing, and mother, Qi Li. Their years of marriage had forged a deep and loving bond. In the guest seats below, a flamboyant woman dabbed at her tears. This was Su Taining's only concubine, Zijuan, who had originally been Qi Li's personal maid and was also Su Tong's mother. So Qi had also heard some rumors. It was said that Zijuan and Su Taining had no emotional foundation. She became pregnant and a concubine because Su Taining, unable to contain himself while Qi Li was pregnant, sought solace with Zijuan with Qi Li's consent. Unexpectedly, the result was a pregnancy, forcing him to make her a concubine. So Tong knelt on the ground, his face filled with sorrow. Kneel! Qi Li roared at Su Qi the moment she saw him enter, her voice laced with fury. Oh, well. So Qi was at his wit's end with his mother in this life. While she was undoubtedly a doting mother, her kind heart, overflowing sympathy, and tendency to trust others too easily were her weaknesses. And to make matters worse, it was her former personal maid who had come to complain. Seeing the current situation, So Q knew that Su Tong and his mother had embellished their complaint. Fine, if mother wants me to kneel, I'll kneel, kneeling to heaven, earth, and parents, it's only right, no need. Su Taining glanced at Su Qi about to kneel and stopped him, taking a sip from his teacup. Upon hearing this, Qi Li was slightly startled, but she would never disobey her husband. Zijuan's cries grew even louder. Head bowed, gritted his teeth, his face contorted with anger, though thankfully, his head remained down. Father said no kneeling, so no kneeling! Su Qi said happily. Thank you, father, for caring. Don't thank me yet. Tell me, do you know why you're here? Su Taining set down his teacup and asked slowly. Su Qi, though somewhat prodigal, possessed one virtue from childhood. No matter what mischief he caused, he never lied to his parents, always telling the truth. Therefore, rather than listening to one-sided accounts, So Tianning believed he should hear what his beloved eldest son had to say. So Qi gathered his thoughts and explained what he had witnessed: Su Tong harassing a maid and then resorting to the 1,000-year kill technique. Zijuan wanted to say something harsh, but then she thought that Su Qi, as the eldest, held a much higher status than her, a concubine, and she could scold him. So, she changed her tone. After all, Su Tong is your brother. Even if he did grope that little maid a bit, why would you hurt him so much? Qi Li stood up and hurried over to comfort Zijuan. So Qi's lips twitched slightly. He silently muttered in his heart, Mom, can't you see through this amateurish drama queen's act? Since it was you who did that to Su Tong. Su Tianning couldn't recall the strange name Su Qi mentioned. His brow furrowed tightly. Su Qi offered a fawning reminder. The 1,000-year kill! Right, Su Tianning nodded, his brow relaxing slightly. Then, feeling he shouldn't be so readily pleased, he cleared his throat and said, Since you're not at fault, kneel down. Su Qi thought he was being needlessly sarcastic, but he didn't resist. Had studied his father's temperament for years and knew that no matter what he said, obedience would please him. Seeing Su Qi obediently kneel, So Tianning's demeanor visibly improved. He turned to Su Tong and said calmly, Why did you tell me your elder brother attacked you without mentioning your own harassment of the maid? Su Tong's face tightened. Hey, that maid is just a slave of the household, a lowly servant. What does it matter if I touched her a few times? I didn't think such a trivial matter needed reporting to father. This idiot, he could have just apologized and gotten it over with. After all these years, he's still the same stubborn fool. No wonder has always been disliked. Su Qi chuckled inwardly, knowing Su Tong's futile explanations would only infuriate his father further. Indeed. Su Taining slammed the table. You insolent boy. Dare you quibble? Father, I didn't. Su Tong's face changed and he hastily spoke. Slap him. Su Tian didn't want to hear another word from Su Tong, waving his hand and sending Su Tong flying with a powerful force.
Wow!
So Qi's eye had heard his father was a powerful magic warrior, but he hadn't expected him to be this incredible. That move, striking from a distance, was simply amazing. Seeing her son flung across the room, Zijuan, who had been acting, immediately stopped her performance, leaping to her feet and rushing to Su Tong's side with a wail of distress. What's all the fuss about? Your son isn't dead, Su Qi muttered under his breath, observing that his father clearly hadn't used much force. Though the scene had looked impressive, Su Tong had only suffered a slap to the mouth. Stop feigning injury, I know my limits. Seeing Su Tong still lying on the ground, Su Tianxing felt a surge of annoyance. If it had been Su Qi who'd been slapped, he would have been up and grinning in an instant. But the difference is so vast! Su Tianxing felt a wave of discontent wash over him. Hearing Su Tianxing's words, Su Tong hesitated on the ground whether to get up, but his mother, Zijuan, was displeased and immediately cried, Master, even though I, Zijuan, am of low status and not favored by you, this son is still your flesh and blood. How can you be so heartless? You beat your son and then say he's faking it. Su Tianxing frowned and said indifferently, aren't you getting up yet, Zijuan? Even more enraged by Su Tianxing's words, stood up and shouted, Master, why are you so biased? You treat Tong like this, you surely haven't forgotten that Suki has no pulse, according to clan rule. He'll be sent back to the ancestral land to farm in a few days. Our family ultimately depends on Tong to support us. Keyless eyes instantly reddened at these words. Enough! Su Tianxing's face changed drastically. He slammed the table, instantly shattering the rosewood furniture into splinters. Zijuan, panicking, no longer pretending, quickly flipped over and knelt before Su Tianxing, kowtowing. Father, Mother lost her head for a moment. Both of you, get out! Seeing Su Tong's agile roll to his feet, a look of disgust finally appeared on Su Tianxing's face as he waved his sleeve. Zijuan and Su Tong felt a dizzying sensation. When they came to their senses, they found themselves lying in the courtyard outside the study. Fearful, they dared not. My goodness, is this what a martial artist is like? So Qi swallowed, looking at the splintered wood beside his father, then at the flying Su Tong and his mother, his astonishment uncontainable. Kia, even if you don't have a pulse, your father won't let the Elders' Council send you to the ancestral land. Su Tianxing pondered for a moment before speaking. A warm current surged through him, and Su Qi grinned. Thank you, father. He'd keep the matter of his dual cultivation of magic and martial arts a secret, planning to surprise his father on the day of the test. Su Qi mused silently. Alright, you're always acting so unruly.
Get up, get out of here!
So Tianxing waved his hand dismissively, feigning annoyance. So Qi, who had been kneeling on the ground, grinned, rolled over lazily, and then dashed away. That child, so grown up yet still so unruly. So Tianxing's face creased in displeasure, but his eyes betrayed an uncontainable smile. Seeing that they were alone, Qi spoke with worry. Master, about Qie's matter, the Elder Council, rest assured, my ascension to the head of the Su family, my position as governor of Liangzhou, it wasn't achieved through those stuffy old fools. If they want my son to return to the ancestral lands, they'll have to ask me if I'm willing. Su Tianxing stood up, his eyes gleaming with light, his bearing radiating an air of supreme confidence. Chapters 5.
So Dalao!
As Su Qi left the house, he ran into the idiot Su Tong and his drama queen mother. Hey, you two, keep it up! Su Qi said with a laugh, slapping his bottom and walking away. Su Tong's usually fair face twisted with rage once more. Zijuan glared at Su Qi, her eyes brimming with resentment. System, if I go out for another stroll tomorrow, can I loot a few more magic martial veins? Su Qi asked as he walked out. It was nearly dusk. Su naturally couldn't go out and cause trouble. If he got caught by Langzhou's curfew patrol, it would be embarrassing.
Depends on probability. Explain yourself properly.
So Qi was displeased with the system's perfunctory response. Generally speaking, the probability of successful looting is already low, and the probability of looting a magic martial vein is even lower. So host, your first successful loot was sheer luck. The system's voice trailed off towards the end. So Qi raised an eyebrow. Instead of exploding as the system expected, he asked, then why did I loot a magic martial vein on my first try? Analyzing the looting target, it seems your younger brother possessed few valuables, was quite impoverished, and lacked other conditions for looting. Therefore, with the already limited choices available, the system looted his magic martial vein. So that's how it is. So Qi seemed to understand. This means that when choosing a target, if they carry few belongings and own little, the probability of looting a magic martial vein increases greatly upon triggering the loot function. Theoretically, yes, Su Qi immediately praised. Hey system, although you speak a little effeminately, it seems you do have some capabilities. Can I change hosts? The system silently wept inwardly. While having dinner at the mansion, Su Qi suddenly remembered the expensive dishes he hadn't gotten to eat at the Xuanjing Tower at noon, and immediately beat his chest in frustration. Damn it, what a loss. I'll go back to Xuanjing Tower tomorrow and make them treat me to a meal. Back in his room, the night passed without incident. The next morning, in high spirits now that he possessed the martial pulse and wouldn't need to farm in the ancestral lands, Su Qi once again sat in his luxurious carriage, accompanied by his 8 hand-picked elite servants, making a boisterous exit from the mansion. A look of disgust crossed the faces of several Su family members who were up early for morning exercises and studies. Useless wretch without a pulse, they thought. See how long your arrogance lasts. Unlike the disdain he received at the Su mansion, Su Chu's carriage was immediately welcomed and adored by the citizens of Liangzhou City upon entering the streets.
Oh my!
Young master Su, up so early again. I have some freshly made oil cakes here. Would you like a few?
Young master, such a poorly fried oil cakes!
Sir, come here and get some freshly steamed buns from me. The street vendors and other citizens were all very enthusiastic towards Suki. The reason was simple. In the past, Suki had dealt with every hoodlum, rogue, and even small gang that dared to cause trouble in Liangzhou, bringing order and peace to the city. It's safe to say that Suki played a significant role in the peaceful and prosperous lives of the common people. Many citizens of Liangzhou even privately referred to Suki as the little Qin Shiyun of Liangzhou, while, of course, his father was the true Great Qin Shiyun. As the carriage arrived at the foot of the Xuanxin Tower, Liangzhou's finest, it remained stubbornly closed. It's almost noon,
and this place is still shut. How lazy can a businessman be? Come on, tear down this gate!
Suki surveyed the scene before giving the order. 8 burly servants immediately rolled up their sleeves, ready to act. The innkeeper opened the door, intending to scold whoever was causing it. Upon seeing 8 strong family servants standing before him, his face broke into a fawning smile. My, what a fortunate gust of wind. It seems the esteemed young Master Su has graced us with his presence so early. Well, now that the door's open, there's no need to tear it down. Suki waved his hand, and the 8 servants ceased their preparations, standing silently at attention. No need to see me out, no need all. From inside the building, a familiar figure emerged, clutching a folding fan, his legs unsteady. Suki turned his head and exclaimed in surprise, Lu Binti, you actually spent the night at the Drunk Red Tower. The Drunk Red Tower was Liangzhou's most popular brothel. Rumor had it that the women there were not only beautiful and graceful but also accomplished in the arts of calligraphy, painting, music, and chess. Their mastery of the xiao was particularly renowned throughout the northern territories. He actually snuck in here for the night. This guy's probably the first among their group of spoiled brats to actually act like a man. Huh? Suki stared at Lu Binti, a mixture of envy and jealousy in his eyes. Who dares to call this young master such a name? Liu Puk violently turned his head, about to unleash a furious scolding, but upon seeing Suchu's faintly smiling face, even his drunkenness sobered up a bit. Suki said with a chuckle,
You dare scold this young master? Come on, bring that guy over here!
I was just thinking where to get some people to try a bit of plundering, and this Lu Binti just sent himself to me. The thugs had already moved while Suki strolled into the Xuanxin Tower with a cheerful smile. Waiter, where's the table of dishes I had yesterday? Suki sat down with a flourish, asking the waiter. The waiter paused slightly. According to the rules of this establishment, after the young master left yesterday, we displayed everything on the table and then offered it to the gods. I paid for it, and you offered it to the gods. Suki looked displeased. The waiter's face was flushed. That's the rule of this establishment. Young master, damn the rules. Get those dishes from my table last night out there, and send them to all the elderly widows and orphans in Liangzhou City. Suki slammed the table and glared. The waiter looked troubled. This was already, believe it or not,
I'll tear this lousy shop apart. Suki would reason, yes.
The waiter could only agree, going to inform the proprietor who was still washing up in the back.
So big brother.
Yupuk's lips trembled, his tongue tripping over itself. Suki stood up, hands behind his back,
and grinned. I've told you countless times, gangster! Call me Su Dalao, so big boss! Su Lao!
Su Dalao. Liu Puch found the title extremely awkward. What's up? Since you're so understanding. Suki nodded with satisfaction. Then, under Liu Yupuk's expectant gaze, slowly said,
Hang up, loose, naughty master!
So big brother, I know, big brother. Cuff. Su Dalao. What do you mean by that? Liu Yupuk called him several times before getting it right. Suki said with a smile, You insulted me in Liangzhou City. If you're still kicking, who will give me face in the future? However, seeing as you're so cooperative, this young master will personally attend to you. Come on, strip this kid naked. No, Liu Yupuk's face was filled with terror. Could this young master Su have that kind of fetish? She instinctively tried to cover her private parts. But the vicious servant was far too brutal. Another scream echoed through the entire Xuanxin Tower. This episode is complete. Welcome to subscribe, turn on the small bell forward, please leave your comments. I will continue to update the content behind.